the 3 hardest lessons I've learned in practice. Facing these head on and overcoming them is exactly how you overcome burnout if you are there, or you prevent it if I get this message to you before you experience it.
All right, chiropractors and chiropractic students, welcome to the Family Practice Podcast. You know, the one you've been waiting way too long for, because this podcast will actually stay focused on chiropractic. Not only what it takes to get world-class clinical results for kids and families in your community, but also what it takes to build a legendary, incredible family practice that takes care of your family way beyond your dreams. I'm Dr. Tony Ebel, and I'll be joined by Dr. Matt Hill, Dr. Ellie Wright, Jackie Jacobowitz, and incredible guests, chiros, associates, CAs, all these folks making massive impact around the world. We're going to cover everything: pediatric, perinatal, family practice. This is the podcast you've been waiting for, because moms and dads and families have always needed us. Now they're finally ready for us. I hope you're ready for the Family Practice Podcast. Let's go. All right. Good morning, good day, good evening. Whatever time you are listening to this, my Family Practice Podcast community, welcome. You're going to get a lot of value out of this one. Now, I hope that I find many of you in a preventative way. The title of this one has the word burnout in it. I'm not exactly sure how the team will title this one to the T, but we're going to talk about that real life conversation. And for many of you, you're there right now, so this is for you. But many of you, I hope to find you before this. I know that many chiropractic students listen to this podcast, and please do share it with all your chiropractic student homies. So the truth is, this is a conversation that is a real life conversation, because so many are facing it, will face it. And I got to tell you the truth about burnout. For me, I'm coming up on 20 years of being a pediatric and family chiropractor, business owner, GSDer, get stuff done. And I only have one mode: all in. All on, all the time, forward moving as fast as we can, as much as we can, as far as we can, to take this mission and vision to the world. So those of you that know me, you would have to think for sure there's got to be times that Tony just smokes out, that Tony just gets completely burnt out. And I really thought a lot about it before writing this article and outline and getting ready for this podcast episode. To tell you the truth, there has never been a time at all where I would, if somebody asked me, hey man, you burned out, that would answer the question yes. It just hasn't happened. Now, the 3 lessons that I'm going to go through in here are the 3 things that I've faced in my practice owning, business owning career who got me really close. So don't hear what I'm not saying. I have definitely dipped my little toes into the burnout waters and been close. I have definitely teetered on the edge of my adrenals no longer wanting to be a part of my life. And I definitely probably qualify as the person in chiropractic who pushes the hardest, pushes the fastest, and pushes the furthest. And I actually want that to be the lesson within the lesson. So if I can truthfully, unequivocally tell you that I have had a freaking blast through every season and every phase of my practice and chiropractic career so far, and I'm not saying with that I haven't faced significant challenges, that I haven't overcome serious obstacles and faced some ridiculously tough times on all the fronts we're going to talk about today, and then some. But it's never taken away my joy. It has never taken away my fulfillment. I have never not loved what I do, because when you really pull back and you go, wow, taking care of kids and families in a principled, nervous system focused practice where the one thing we offer and provide them transform their lives, it creates miracles at a level that literally, actually, scientifically proven no one else on earth can even get to. How do you not love that? Well, marketing, business owning, running, so finding, hiring, training, onboarding, leading a team. There's a lot of things that come along with this job, and job singular is not the right way to describe it. Jobs, Jobs, plural, that you have. There's a lot of things within this landscape that if you don't learn the real lessons of how valuable, how important they are, how difficult they are to master, but how wonderful and recharging
engaging and fulfilling they are when you do, then you are likely to burn out yourself. And a lot of people aren't even just burnt out. They're just bored. They get into side hustles and they get into all this other sort of stuff because they struggle and they can't quite overcome these three things, or they just aren't really in it for the right reasons. So that should be one of my talking points. It's actually not. But first, it's honestly kind of a little bit, let's go a little old school rap. You got to check yourself before you wreck yourself. And if you are in this game called Family Chiropractic for financial gain, for status, for to feel better about yourself instead of to make their lives better, if you are in this for reasons other than it is all about them, you are pretty much guaranteed to sprint down the path of burnout, boredom, and you will be the easiest sucker for the shockwave and whatever other side hustle sales crew that comes around hunting and praying and picking us chiropractors off all the time. So I'm hoping and I'm praying and I'm planning that a lot of you out there listening, this is for you. This is what you are called to do. This is the one thing you think about when you wake up. You think about taking it to your community all day, every day. And when you fall asleep at night, before you sleep soundly, calmly, with a great status and regulation of your nervous system and wake up, recharge the next day, this is what you are thinking about doing. So let's have some fun. Let's dive into the 3 hardest lessons I've learned in practice, because facing these head on and overcoming them is exactly how you overcome burnout if you are there, or you prevent it if I get this message to you before you experience it. So first off, I got a short little list to cover what a lot of people think is difficult. And I just want to tell you from real life practice and business owning experience, compared to a couple of things I'm just going to have some fun and rip off, the next 3 things are much more difficult, and they were much harder lessons to learn and get through than the ones that I thought at the time were quite difficult. So what wasn't honestly that difficult was getting through chiropractic school. There's a system to it, okay? You got to show up for class, you got to take the quizzes, you got to pass the tests, you got to study for boards, and you got to pass boards, okay? So that then allows you to put the weird cap and gown thing on, walk across the stage, and get your diploma. Now, the hard thing about chiropractic school is that for the most part, especially board exams, they don't prepare you much at all, the board exam part I'm really leaning into, for successful chiropractic practice, okay? They definitely, nor is it their job, to prepare you for business and being successful there. So a lot of you right now are like, dude, that's the hardest thing. Some of your startups right now, and you're like, this is so hard. It is. I'm not saying it's not difficult. I'm not saying it wasn't hard. I'm not saying I didn't need to really hustle, really get coaching, get mentoring. And I did. I paid 2 different coaches. I paid $1,500 a month of money I did not yet have, because I knew I did not know how to get done what I needed to get done, which is be successful in practice. And so I invested money to make sure my path to success as a startup was that. And it was wonderfully, awesomely money well spent. My wife and I, Christina and I, we look back on that $1,500 a month, and everybody we bought a building, $400,000. We took out a bank loan for the equipment and the build out, another $120,000, and then I was $200,000 in debt from school. So we were $700 and some change invested, and then paid $1,500 a month for coaching and management in the startup season. So let me tell you, on the surface, there was a lot of difficulty to that. There was a lot of risk, some people would call that, into that process. But that's actually what I feel like made it easy. When you are absolutely up against it, you have no other choice but to move forward. You have no other choice to get up each day and get after it and do the things that grow a practice. So what I'm going to talk about next, with keeping up with marketing and scaling a practice, keeping up with staying focused in practice and not being picked off by all the shiny lures and bells and whistles and party tricks that this profession hooks successful chiropractors with and takes them off course. And honestly, the hardest thing, building a team and becoming a leader. All I want to say in the front end of this is there's all sorts of hard seasons like chiropractic school and starting up a practice. I just need to tell you the truth, not because I'm here to have a warm and fuzzy episode for you, but I'm here to let you know that the next 3 moves, the next 3 mountains to get over and conquer, they've actually got quite a bit more to them than chiropractic school or starting up. That's also just got to put a bow on that startup one. Y'all, you're young, you got energy. Maybe you haven't even started. I also, just to add a little bit of extra pizzazz to ours, our first baby girl, Addison, was born 2 weeks before I graduated, and then we opened up the practice 2 weeks after that. So I started up practice, 700 and some change thousand invested, brand new family, and we bought a building and signed our name, not just on a lease, but on a mortgage. So let me just tell you, I know how to get through hard things, and I know how to make hard, difficult things easy. And I want to share those lessons through these different intersections or mile markers into building a thriving family practice, and just sneak in my real life lessons so I can share them with you for that relatability and implementability. So the very first thing I want to put a bow on with that first season, it was all a mentality. It's always been a perspective and a mentality. I actually don't really love the word mindset because I think it's kind of like the word authentic. It has been completely overused and it's lost its effective meaning, but it is the right word at the same time. When you go into these lessons, when you go into these challenges, I can get you the strategy. I can give you the bullet points of here's the things we did for marketing. Here's the things we did to learn how to stay focused. Here's the things we did to learn how to become a leader. I have that list. I have that PDF of books I've read and podcasts I go into and coaches and mentors that I've hired to help me with this. But I got to tell you, the list, the books, the podcasts, the coaches, they're only going to be as effective as your starting out mentality and your perspective. And so every single part of this process, every step along the way, we have leaned in. We have this lean in, all in, no matter what mentality to us. And that's really the kind of ground zero lesson of this one, is that those things are something that so many people would look at and say, oh, this is so hard. How am I going to do this? And the first thing you want to do is lean in and go, I absolutely got this. What's the best strategy I can deploy to make that happen? Okay, so now getting those out of the way, the school, the startup season, and there's other lessons of things that I could probably kind of say these were like pre-hard lessons and obstacles that we went through. But the 3 biggest challenges and the 3 hardest dragons, if you will, that I've slayed as a business owner and a family practice chiropractor over the last almost 20 years are these 3 things. I'll list them out, then I'm going to break down each one into some granular detail so you know how to get through them smoother, faster, and even better than I did. So very difficult thing, number 1, keeping up with the endless daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually demands of marketing. So keeping up with marketing. Number 2 is learning how to lead, learning how to actually build a team, because the truth of the matter is your systems and your procedures do not scale and build your practice, nor should it all be on your shoulders. It's other people that get in on the mission and vision. That's number 2. How to build a team, which is really down to one thing, how to become an absolute world-class leader. And number 3, how to stay focused. That's going to be a fun conversation when we get there. But let's start with number 1, keeping up with the demands of marketing. So what do I have to tell you about marketing? Number 1, I have learned to love it. And here's why. So I'm going to start there again. I'm going to start with the perspective and the mentality around marketing. No, you didn't go to marketing school. You went to chiropractic school. No, you're not a marketer. You're a chiropractor. But if you chose to run your own practice to bring chiropractic into your community, if that is what the vehicle you chose consciously yourself to step into to bring this product that transforms lives and creates miracles, chiropractic, into the community, well, you by nature signed up to learn how to become a marketer and a business owner as well. Or maybe you're listening to this podcast and you're part of an incredible team and your team has you helping out with the marketing and getting the message out into the community so that patients can come from the community into the practice to have their lives transformed. And that's how I fell in love with it, because it's not any more complicated than that. Marketing is the first step in making miracles. And if you are a note taker as you listen to this new family practice podcast that we are rocking full steam with, and we will not stop. We're going to take over the profession with, so we can take over all of healthcare for pediatric and family care and put pediatric chiropractic as first choice for millions of families. Well, if you're a note taker, which is a good thing to do because notes have a much better chance of going into action than just listening, that's what I want you to know. Marketing is the first essential required step in making miracles happen. So if you want to experience miracles in your practice and you want to have the most incredible life for your family, learning how and consciously choosing to fall in love with marketing is a required sequential first step in your success. So really, once you get that buy-in and you go, wait a minute, I know what I'm doing here. Every time I do a video, I have the chance to save a kid's life. Every time I step out into the community and I go get coffee with a doula or a midwife or a pediatric PT or an OT or a holistic integrated pediatrician or whomever that I can form community partnerships with and collaborations with and get referrals from them and send referrals to them, or if every time I do a short form video or a long form video or I write a blog or I send an email or I update the website or I do a webinar, the list goes on with actions that are effective ways to market your practice. Now, every time you go do those, it takes a significant amount of time and energy to keep up with marketing. And the way that you reboot, restore, and keep your energy on point all the time is you know from the beginning what the end outcome goal and desire is. And every video counts. So in our world, we live by, you've probably seen it on our content. I hope you do. We have a hashtag. I sign off my emails with this. It says, every kid counts. Well, if you swim upstream into how you get a chance to get a kiddo on your table and their family adjusted and transform their lives, it all starts with your branding and it all starts with your marketing. So if you really truly feel that every kid counts and that's in your heart and soul, it becomes so much easier to fall in love with marketing and learn to be a master of it. And then we're getting there, learn how to strategically keep up with it so you can consistently, effectively market your practice so that you're not on the roller coaster where new patients go up and you feel good and you have energy because you did all the marketing to bring them in, and then you get busy taking care of them and busy with something else with your family, and then you fall off of marketing and then it goes down and then you freak out and then you're all stressed out and then you deploy energy and then you get burnt out because the roller coaster, the merry-go-round of marketing, whatever you want to call it, whatever analogy you want to use, it's real and it captures a whole lot of chiropractors and a whole lot of business owners, but it is so much harder to capture you and burn you out if you know how and you learn how to be marketing for the right reasons. I have never, maybe for a hot minute in the beginning of my practice with a brand new baby and just learning how to do this, but I have always marketed for them. I have always marketed with the mentality of every video counts, every post counts, every Instagram live counts, every webinar counts, because I can see it literally on a whiteboard. We map this stuff out, the patient journey. We know that our organic content, which now, because I've scaled this to a team, so I'll get to that, how to consistently do that. Let me get to the output or the outcome first, and I'll teach you the system. Now I have it down to where I used to spend 2 to 4 hours per day when I was a startup in the land of marketing. So we're talking 20, 25, 30 hours a week. Basically, I had a part-time job running the marketing department, if you will, of my practice and business all by myself. And I highly encourage that actually still to startups. I highly encourage to help them build their ideal week and their strategic week calendar so that you have plenty of time, you, yourself, and I, to be involved in marketing, because rolling up your sleeves, getting your hands dirty and getting after it, learning how to public speak, learning how to slay social media, learning how to do networking and community connections and workshops, learning how, notice I didn't say screenings because I never did. Learning how to do all those things is essential at first. Now we have it dialed in to down to 2 to 4 hours of my time per week at most. And many months, the only thing I need to do is make video content, because you're going to see, in a way, I'm almost kind of 1 or 2 steps ahead to the hard lessons. Really, again, when I write these articles and I do these podcasts and the outlines, I got to separate these lessons into separate formatted bullet points. But the way that I've really learned how to keep up with marketing is I've systemized it, yes, but I've brought in a team to help me. We have a team that especially works behind the scenes. So it's still important for me, even though I have a team of 8 doctors as of recording this. So I'm not the only, we definitely do not have a personality dependent practice, but you better believe that getting your name, your story, who you are and why you exist and what you stand for, getting that message out from you is essential. But there's also a whole lot of stuff like building websites, building landing pages, building funnels, running ads, just a whole list of things that take up a ton of time and energy for marketing that you, the chiropractor, should not do. So that's where the word consistency comes in. And it's the most difficult part of marketing for most. Many people I talk to who even love marketing, they really still live on that merry-go-round or that roller coaster because they haven't brought team and systems into the conversation to be able to consistently produce the marketing content. So here's how I want you to think of it. Marketing outputs, marketing action is the first step in making miracles happen, right? We talked about that a couple of minutes ago. So now stay on that meaning with math. That means the more outputs, so the more marketing activity you can put out there in all the ways, old school marketing, internal referral campaigns, professional connections and co-referral stuff, getting out into the community and doing talks and workshops, that would be old school. And then new school, which really isn't new school at all anymore. It's kind of weird that I would call it that. But social media, digital marketing, Google, Facebook, Instagram, email marketing, digital marketing. For many of you, unfortunately, that still seems a little new school. The more you can put outputs in all of those different buckets, the more you can fill them up with new patients. Now, the key word being you. How the heck are you going to keep up with that, especially when your practice gets busy? Let's say you do what I'm recommending, which is you're heavily, actively involved in marketing your practice as a startup, because guess what? You ain't got any money to pay anybody else to help you do it. So you get after it, and then it works, and then you get busy, and then you're at 100 a week, and 200 a week, and 300 a week, and 350 a week, and 450 a week, and I got up to 550, about 600 a week myself, and it hit me hard. How the heck was I going to keep up with, number one, being a dad and a husband, number two, being an engaged, energized, find primary subluxations, tap in, be focused with 500, 600 adjustments every single week, and then also run the practice, lead the team, and keep up with marketing. Because once I started to get busy, we needed to hire, and I haven't even hit that point yet of learning how to be a leader. That actually became harder than learning how to be a marketer. So again, I'm kind of infusing these two lessons together for you on this episode, but it became readily apparent almost too late for me that I needed to get help with marketing. Now that had become my baby. So I'll finish this hard lesson number one with one last real life lesson, just speaking from the heart with this one. I love marketing. I love making content. I fell in love with workshops and talks, especially in the beginning, because I'm talking about the number one thing I love in life, which is transforming lives through chiropractic. And it's easy for me to do that. It wasn't easy in the beginning, but I learned to make it easy. I love making videos. I love writing articles. I love marketing. My love of it, which was the first thing I asked you to do to be successful consistently with it, actually became my addiction to it. And it made it a bit more difficult to let other CAs and doctors from my team step in and help out because I had become successful with it. It was paying off. It was bearing fruit. But there's only literally so much time on your weekly calendar, and there's only so much neurological juice left in my nervous system and my adrenals. So once I got to that point and we were seeing, and then I hired 2 associates and scaled the practice through team, which I'll roll into right next. And so it became very immediate that I was going to get burnt out if I carried the entire weight of marketing on my shoulders. It's something I still work on today. Literally right now in this season, I'm making this podcast for me because every time I get more people on my team to help with marketing and I slow down and I take the time to teach them how to do it successfully, it is wildly successful and we are able to do it far more consistently. So marketing is hard. It's hard because of the time constraints and prioritization. I mean, how do you not prioritize your family? How do you not prioritize your patients? So when does marketing get done? Marketing is like the working out for a business owner. You're just going to get it in when you can, which is why so many people don't. And then even if you make the time, are you skilled at it? Do you have the knowledge and the skill sets? And are you able to keep up? Here's another thing I haven't even mentioned that most of you are like, I can't believe he hasn't said this yet. It's my number one frustration within marketing. What works today probably won't work tomorrow. But in the same breath, what is always proven, outputs over everything. Marketing is a game of quantity of outputs, and the only way you learn to have quality, effective marketing is you have to commit to consistent quantity of a high number of outputs first, and then you learn the skills through repetition on how to be an effective marketer. That is the very difficult first hardest lesson I learned in my career. And thankfully I got across that bridge many, many years ago. And now we're fully dialed in. Very difficult lesson number 2, learning how to be an effective leader. This one, if there was, I told you with marketing, we got to 500-600 a week. We got pretty close to that. That was probably the first one that took me right up onto the edge of, Lake Burnout. This one, I definitely got my feet wet. Okay. I think with this one, I was maybe even up to my waist. Okay. I'm just going to run this analogy out, aren't I? With this whole lake of burnout, that's just a weird analogy, but we're in it and we're halfway through the podcast. So we just got to run this one through. And so leadership, building a team, having a team, leading a team, scaling through team, because write this one down too. Systems do not scale your practice and your business. Team does. People do. That's how this works. Your systems are only as good as your team. So you can have the coolest label maker, binder, scripted, flowchart, laminated. Maybe you own your own laminator and your own label maker because you just love systems so much. Well, guess what? Who leads your team? Who follows that laminated flow sheet? Who gets that checklist done? And more importantly, why would they do it? Because leadership is 1,000 million freaking % about people getting all in on board. Notice I didn't just say getting on board, because you can hire any stiff from anywhere, Indeed.com, Craigslist, whatever. Finding the right people, getting them all in is all dependent upon the leader. And them having this ability to cast a vision and have a mission and a purpose that is so freaking life transforming for the lives of others first, and then the lives of people who will join that team and work for that team. Notice what we've come back to, the same little tidbit / gold nugget we were on before. Marketing will always be hard if you're doing it to make money. Marketing will always be difficult and lead to burnout if you're doing it to make money. Leading a team, I was going to say it'll be difficult. I'm just going to point blank this one. You will never succeed in building and leading a team if it's about you or it's about making money. It 1,000 million % has to be entirely about a mission and a vision that absolutely transcends and goes far beyond you and everyone else who's going to saddle up and join that team. This is why most small businesses stay small. Yes, they struggle to scale their marketing and their systems, but they really struggle to build a team. And they really struggle to build a team because leadership is the hardest skill I've ever had to learn. And it hit me square in the anterior sacrum time and time again with how freaking bad I was at this. And here's what it looked like. We scaled that practice that I talked about earlier in the first 3 years, got that sucker to 400, 500, 600 a week. Then we went to 700, 800 a week with 2 associates and a team of CAs. And I was honestly, truly just following a blueprint from my practice management and my coaching. I was hiring and getting team and onboarding them and training them in a very black and white. It was all about, here's your roles, responsibilities. Here's what you get paid. Here's your bonuses. It was all about math and it was all about money. And it was never about mission. Now, I've only ever been about mission, but I didn't know how to tap into that for this skill called leadership. Nobody told me, which would have been nice to know at the time, that the one thing that I have oozing out of my eyeballs is this big mission and vision is actually the most effective thing I could leverage in order to grow in my leadership and be effective at it. So we grew to 800 a week with one set of associates and one set of CAs, and pretty much in, I think it was 6 months or left, turned and burned through that entire team. Now you'd think, oh, this is cool. This is the point. This first lesson right here where Tony lost his entire team or 6 months or less, and then was responsible for adjusting that many people pretty much on my own. And our family had grown. My wife was pregnant with baby number 4. And oh, by the way, right at the same time that my first team completely turned over and I completely lost my whole team, I also got bit by a tick and got acute Lyme disease. So had this raging fever for a couple of days. So that was all a super fun summer. And it was completely my fault. And I had no clue. Because you're thinking, this is probably the moment where he learns, right? This is where he's going to share that lesson from that moment in practice, how he woke up and realized, dude, you suck as a leader. You should probably reach out, get some help, read some books. Nah. Just went, it's not funny. Why am I laughing? Went right back to the same system. Went right back to the same coaches. Went right back to my same friends and the same people I looked up to who here's a lesson within a lesson. Had never built a team themselves and never learned how to be a leader. So it happened to me again about a year later. Hired a whole new team, brought in whole new associates, and we burned right through them again. So I got to tell you, I had 2 strikes against me in leadership, and this is right when I was absolutely on the brink of burnout. This is where I thought, and I got to take this one real deep because it really was. In that same moment, the coaches and the mentors who I was paying and very much trusting and very much respected and revered at the time, here's the advice I got. Yeah, that's an impossible path to take. Associates, yeah, they never work out. CAs, yeah, they never work out. What I would do is I would increase your fees so you could increase your profit margin. And what you should do for the next 30, 40, 50 years of your practice is you should put your practice on cruise control. You should whittle down to working just 3 days a week and 19 to 21 hours and just stack cash and call it good. That was the advice I got during this leadership lesson, punching me in the face season. And I understand it from their viewpoint. That's what they got into this for. There are a lot of people, which is wild to me that they're chiropractors, but it is what it is. A lot of people are in this to make a lot of money. A lot of people are in this to get a lot of free time, to take vacation and do, I don't know what they do. They paddleboard, they pickleball, whatever they do. Maybe they're freaking awesome at both of those things, okay? And it starts with P. And so that is their purpose, speaking of a P word. It's not mine. So that path, my goodness, how many P words am I running into this lesson right here? So that path right there for me, while coming from a trusted paid coach, was an absolute heck no, no way, right away answer, which meant, what the heck was I going to do? I had 0 skill sets, 0 training, 0 mentorship, 0 coaching. I didn't even have any good examples in my life of people who had built an associate team-driven practice. Everywhere I looked in front of me to coaches and mentors who had come before me, they had burnt out and given up. I looked to my left and I looked to my right to this because I was very particular about getting myself in this circle of successful chiropractors. They were all failing miserably at getting associates and a team-driven practice and scaling from there. None of them knew how to lead either. So in that moment, God sent me somebody from outside our typical circle of principal chiropractic, and I got plugged into a group called the Leaders Mastermind with Dr. Josh Axe and Dr. David Toohill and Dr. Dan Sullivan. And I started to get mentorship, and I started to get into books, and I started to get into podcasts, and I started to get into YouTube channels, and I started to reach out to other successful business owners outside of chiropractic in my local community, my kids' school, and my church, and I started to ask questions. How the heck do I do this? Because I had had 0 leadership training, but I'd had a lot of failure, and I wasn't willing to give up. So before I move on to lesson 3, we got to come back to lesson 0. The mentality to move forward, even when I was failing, was the absolute golden key here. If it had been about me, I never would have become a world-class leader. And so when I still look left and I still look right and I see practices in this profession, people often, it breaks my heart the most when I had the ability to mentor them in the early season, but they don't stick with us through this very tough time. Startup, easy compared to this transition. Most people never grow a practice past themselves or 1 to 2 associates, 3, 4, 500 a week. The reason you see everybody either burn out at 3 to 500 a week or give up and get into crypto, start launching online courses, become a chiropractic coach and teach other people how to go to 300, 400 a week all by themselves and then burn out and then become a coach and then do online course and then get into real estate and then get into Airbnbs. The reason you see that all over the place is because getting to 0 to 500 is absolutely easy. It is 500 times, and I mean that frickin' number, 500 times easier than going from 500 a week to 1,000 a week, than going from 500,000 collected to 1 million and beyond. Going from that first, what we call base camp of business, to a real, actual team-driven base camps, because there's many, many, many more after this, many than you could ever know once you really tap into leadership. It's a very difficult transition, and that's why it's so freaking wonderful, because it's so incredibly fruitful, because the way you scale, and you can keep scaling exponentially, is through the power of other humans and learning how to be an effective leader. So right here on this Family Practice podcast, trust me, we're coming back to that conversation again and again and again. How do you become an effective leader? I'll be doing interviews on it. I'll be doing solos on it. We're going to go all in on that conversation many times with this podcast. So make sure, if you haven't already, if this is the first episode you're finding and you haven't pulled out your phone, hit the little button, hit the little download, subscribe. I'd even love, if you're loving this and this is landing for you and it's changing things for your practice, please give us a review as well so we can find more chiropractors who are absolutely called to be in family practice, absolutely called to learn how to scale and make their marketing happen consistently, and absolutely, most importantly, called to step into leadership. But we can't step out of this episode just yet, because we have a third thing, and I'll keep this one actually short and sweet, because it's really simple and really, really, really difficult to stay focused in practice and stay focused in business. And the time that it's easy to focus is when you have to, when you're starting up and you're not yet successful. All of us just innately know during that season of practice that we can't focus on 17 things. We can't go after a side hustle. We can't try and run 3 businesses at once when we've never even run one sort of successfully. And so we stay focused and we go after it and we get it done and we grow our practice into a successful practice. Now, I've used numbers through this podcast, but you can take your numbers of visit volume and collections and whatever else and put your definition of success on that. I really don't mind. Whatever, you scale accordingly using the numbers that you would say, okay, that's where I've got to get to make sure my family, to make sure that the life I want to live is taken care of financially. That's your math, your town. Your everything is more dependent upon that. There's some aggregate math we can use to kind of say chiropractically, these are some good success metrics, but they definitely have scale to them. Please don't ever hear me not say that on this podcast. But the most easily picked off chiropractor and business owner, this isn't just a chiropractic thing, I just think it's really pandemic inside chiropractic, the most easily picked off by distraction, dilution, and, as Alex Hormozi, someone I love to listen to, great business builder, marketing guy, he calls this the lady in the red dress, okay? It's that other thing. It's that next thing. And this is wild that it happens to so many of us. But the moment that you get through all that hustle and all that grind and all that hard work and you have a successful practice, at least the first version of it, it's like a kiddo learning how to walk. You're walking, we're celebrating, we're cheering, and actually that's a freaking great analogy. I've never used that before, but I'm run that one out. You know what happens when you're a kiddo? If you've not had them yet, this is exactly what happens. You wait all these months. It seems like every day while you're waiting for your little one to learn how to walk. So in our world, Dr. Allie and Jonah work on our team. Baby Goldie is my niece, not actually, but she is, because they're just a huge part of our lives and we get to be a part of their lives. So I get to be Uncle Tony to Baby Goldie. And in the last couple of weeks, she started walking. Well, there was weeks and months that seemed to go so slow while we were waiting for baby Goldie to walk. The moment they do, you cheer first, freak out second, and you put all these guards up, you put all these gates up, because once a baby can walk and crawl stairs, they don't know what they might get into that is dangerous and not good for them. What's crazy is, and I've never used this analogy, it's coming to me live on the podcast here as we round third base and take this one home. That is the exact analogy every business owner should hear. Once you learn how to walk and run and climb stairs and be successful in chiropractic practice, you should put some gates up. You should put a moat up and keep the shockwave salesman out and keep the white label supplement salesman out and keep the, oh, you should be a chiro coach and join this and do this person side hustle extraordinaire out. Because the way you create not just massive impact in your community, but you build a ridiculously financially successful family practice is through one other F word, focus. Pure, relentless, obsessive focus. And it is a learned and developed skill that not too many chiropractors have. And you know why they're so easily picked off? Because marketing and leading, or lack thereof, burnt them out. And they failed a couple times too. They were on the merry-go-round of marketing and they started to get tired. They were on the merry-go-round of losing team and having team turnover, and instead of taking responsibility and turning the fingers inward and saying, that's on me to get better as a leader, how do I do that and develop that skill? They blame, oh, it's millennials, they don't want to work, it's this generation, it's this, and they blame others. And once you start playing the blame game, once you start to get burnt out and you start to feel bad for yourself, you are the most easily picked off chiropractor ever for the shockwave salesman or saleswoman to get in and get you off course with your practice. I wish to God that I didn't see this literally every single week for my entire career. And I want to close with this one. If I have a secret superpower that you can trust from this podcast will come from it and through it and be shared to you so you have it too every single episode, it is my ability to stay focused and move forward with one thing. Now, if you hear that and you go, but dude, you have a practice, you have a certification, an adjusting seminar, you guys have your online membership, you have this podcast plus your parent-facing one. What do those all bring to the world? Pediatric chiropractic. More kids getting adjusted with world-class chiropractic. If that's happening locally, that has to do with what I do. If that's happening globally, that has to do with what I do. So those are not side hustles. Those are the hustle for me. And the reason that I can tap into these other things is because I've scaled my marketing through team and systems. The reason I could leverage team and systems to scale my marketing is because I learned how to be a world-class leader, which takes humility, which takes hard lessons, which takes the right mentorship, the right books, and the right strategies. There's a whole system to it. And when you conquer those and you climb those mountains and you get to the other side, staying focused is far easier. So, to recap this one, nothing. I probably should have taken each of these, marketing, leadership, and staying focused, and done in an individual episode on them because they're each deep dives on their own. So be ready for that. But get into the group chat and send this out to every chiropractic student and every chiropractor, and send it out to them if they're in back pain and soft tissue and ART and rehab right now, because guess what? Maybe they don't want to be. Maybe they want to be in a thriving family practice as well. And the lessons learned on this episode and every episode are 100% geared up, dialed in to get that done. So the recap of this one is everything I talked about is extremely difficult to figure out, which is exactly why when you do, you become unstoppable. God bless everyone. I love you because you love what I love. Please download, please subscribe, please send this out, Instagram stories, text blasts, emails it out to your homie. And if you feel so inclined, I would absolutely love a review, and just let me know how this one and these episodes are hitting you. We'll see you on the next one.
Hey, Dr. Tony here, and I wanted to say thank you for listening to the Family Practice Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe to the show so you don't miss a thing. Also, if you're looking for more content from us, you can absolutely subscribe to our newsletter, watch exclusive episodes on YouTube, and dive deep into the articles and blogs on our website. All of this is linked in today's show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode.